Hey there, I'm Raji from FearNET and Icons of Fright. I also do a podcast called Killer POV with Rebecca McKendry from Fangoria and Ulrich Kane from Inside Horror. Actually, we're going to be doing a live podcast in the other room tomorrow, which you guys should join us for. But wow, Texas Frightmare. This is my first time here, and it's pretty freaking awesome, right?
Yeah.
We're having a good time. So, I don't know about you guys, I'm actually a little nervous for this because I grew up on the Universal Monster movies and I've never had the chance to share a stage or talk to anyone from any of these films. So, I'm just going to bring them out and hopefully we'll have a fun chat. We'll open it for you guys too if you have questions. But let's welcome Ricou Browning and Julie Adams from Creature from the Black Lagoon. I feel like there's so much space between us. I hope this is intimate.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Alrighty, hi. How are you guys doing?
So far, so good.
So this is fun. I mean, can you believe this is the 60th anniversary of the Creature from the Black Lagoon? It's pretty amazing. 60 years. Still going. Now, my first question for the both of you, just because as a fan, I'm actually kind of curious about this. When you think about the Universal Monster movies, now it's just a given that the creature is part of it. You know, it's Dracula, the Wolfman, the creature. But what a lot of people forget is that the creature came out much after, like in the 50s, much after the Universal Monster movies of the 30s and 40s. So at that point when you guys did Creature, were they, I mean, what was the kind of, were the Universal Monsters like Dracula and Wolfman, were they as popular in the early 50s when you were starting to do Creature? Like, were they already kind of classic characters?
I can't remember.
Either of you. I mean, you've heard of them at that point when you did the movie, right? Dracula and Wolfman and stuff like that.
Yeah, but we weren't thinking about them when we were doing the movie.
Right. It felt like a separate entity?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. Get situated. For both of you, how did you, we'll start with Julie first, getting involved in this project. I know you were doing a lot of work with Paramount at the time, I believe. I'm not sure how things worked in the 50s. Were you a contract player at Universal? Was this like, how did you get this role?
I was a contract player.
Okay.
So, they assigned me, I said, what's my next show? And they assigned me something.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, the creature from the what? What is this? But I thought, oh, well, if I turn it down, I'll be on suspension. What the heck, it might be fun. And indeed it was. It was fun, and it's fun for people all these years later. That's the remarkable thing about movies. You never know.
Yeah. And Ricou, you were already doing some underwater photography work in Florida at the time that the creature came about, correct?
No.
No, you weren't. So was this one of the first type of projects that you did that involved underwater photography? How did it all come about?
Pardon?
How did that all come about?
I was going to college, and I had a friend of mine who was the general manager of Wakulla Springs, and he called me on the phone. He said, there's some people coming from California to do a movie, and they want to see the Springs as a location. He said, I can't be here, so would you pick them up, take them and show them the Springs? And I said, sure, so I did. And the cameraman, Scotty Wilburn at that time, asked me if I'd swim in front of the camera to get some perspective the size of a human being, to fish, to eel grass, and whatever. And he photographed me and left. A couple of weeks later, I got a call from the general manager again. He says, they're trying to reach you. I said, who? He said, the director of the film that they're going to make. He said, I gave him your phone number. So I got a call from Jack Arnold, turned out to be the director. He said, how would you like to be an underwater monster? We like the way you swim. So I got the job because it's the way I know when you swim.
You smell like a monster. You know, one of the things that stands out about the creature and why he's endured for 60 years is just the classic look of it. I mean, you see him and it's indelible. As soon as, I mean, when I was a kid, I was telling you backstage, as soon as I saw the creature, I thought he looked cool and I wanted to draw him. I was obsessed with the creature. What was, for both of you, for Julie and Ricou, what was your first impression seeing the costume for the first time and what the creature was going to look like? Were you scared at all, or?
I was very impressed. I thought it looked just great. I thought, hey, this might turn out to be a good movie after all.
It took a month for them to make the suit, and we had a lot of problems making the suit. And then we tested the tank on the back lot at Universal Studios, and Julie was testing her new bathing suit she was going to wear.
Yeah.
It looked good.
Okay, and Julie, I think this is a good time to mention, because I just watched the commentary on the movie, and at the time, I guess this was a gimmick, but he was saying you looked good in a swimsuit. Your legs were insured for $125,000 because they were the perfect legs. Is this correct?
Well, that's what they told me at Universal. I don't know if it was really true. I never saw the paperwork, but anyway, it made a good blip in the papers.
They were
right?
billed as the most perfectly symmetrical legs in the world.
Wow, perfectly symmetrical legs. I'm telling you, watch that movie. It's so Julie, can you talk a little bit about working with Jack Arnold? Because this, this is early in his career. It's his fourth feature. He had just done, I think it was, It Came from Outer Space. So what was he like in here, at this time?
I loved working with Jack Arnold because he was very direct. He was very efficient, and everything he said, every direction he said, made sense. So I enjoyed working with him very much. We did.
And Ricou, did you work with Tom at all in Florida, or was there a second unit director that was in charge of all the underwater footage?
Jim Havens was the second unit director, and he couldn't swim.
Wow, how do you get that gig?
He had an inner tube, he had a lung tube, and a face mask, and he'd look down in the water to see what we were doing.
Right.
We would rehearse the scenes on a barge with him, and then we'd go underwater, and Scotty and I would kind of ad-lib some of the scenes and try to accomplish what we rehearsed topside.
Excellent. Julie, for both of you actually, but starting with Julie, this is actually, for me, this is one of the first 3D movies that I remember as a kid. I don't know what the process was back in the 50s, but was it a complicated shoot because of 3D, or did they, I don't know how they did it back then.
I think they made it uncomplicated for us, really.
Okay.
They had, of course, the 3D camera, and so there were certain moments that needed to be adjusted and so on, but it was not a big deal. I mean, they didn't make it complicated for us.
Was it the type of thing where you had to do multiple takes because of the camera, or like did it take longer than usual, or you know?
It's terrible. I can't remember exactly. Sometimes, well, we were used to movies doing retakes, they'd say one more, and so okay, you do one more. And then again, they'd say one more, okay, you do one more. So you were used to that. So I don't remember that being extraordinarily more so. It seemed fairly efficient.
Okay.
Jack Arnold did a very good job with us, really.
Yeah. And quite frankly, if you have the Creature from Black Lagoon, the Blu-ray, the 3D there for modern 3D TVs looks awesome. It's the best it's ever looked. So, Ricou, was it complicated shooting 3D for all the underwater footage?
No, not at all. It was complicated in that Scotty Wilburn built the housing for the 2 cameras for the use underwater, and they flooded at least 3 different times. And they had to work on the cameras at night to be able to shoot the next day and bring in new equipment. But as far as, working in front of the camera, you didn't notice any difference.
Okay. Before I open up to the audience, I mean, the one thing that I'm always curious about, especially when it comes to a classic film, is what was your first impression when it came out and you saw it? I mean, you couldn't have possibly known, like, oh my God, this is going to be a classic film. But what did you think the first time you saw Creature on the big screen?
Well, I paid admission to go to the theater to see it.
In 3D?
In 3D.
Okay.
And I enjoyed the film.
Right. Julie?
I can't remember the first time I saw it.
First
This is my
impression.
son.
Yeah, first impression, I'm not sure. What's the first time you saw it?
I thought, hey, it's not bad. Not bad. Okay, all right. I think people will have fun seeing this movie. It's always good to be in a movie that you feel people will enjoy. So I thought, okay, by me.
How soon after that did you get an inkling that this was a classic Universal monster movie? Like, this is beyond just a little sci-fi movie.
Well, I was a little beyond predicting things like that. I didn't really know that, but I was delighted when it happened.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Does anybody in the audience want to ask either of these two a question? Right in front here.
Julie, did you do your own swimming? Did you do your own swimming in the movie?
Yes, I did. I did my own swimming, but Ginger Stanley did some.
Yeah, she was on the surface. Ginger Stanley was the underwater double.
okay.
Was the
There also
underwater?
Yeah,
Polly
because there's
Burson
one part
who
where
was
he
her stunt
pulls
double.
you in, and I
That's
would
Polly
think,
Burson. She had a stunt double at the lot too. Did the big when you get swept off the boat.
yeah, that's what I was thinking
All the
of,
stuff on
yeah.
the surface was. So you're innocent.
So,
As long as she was on top of the water and you were swimming under her, what else could you do?
Any more questions?
movies.
Ricou, I think you needed to film pretty deeply, maybe as deep as 85 feet below surface. Is that right?
The deepest we worked was 80 feet, and it was only in one scene. The scene where Julie is grabbed and goes overboard off the bow of the boat.
Why wasn't
I
this
swam down with Ginger by holding on to her leg, and we had to go to a ledge which was about 80 feet under. To go under it to look like we were going in a cave.
How did they get you air? Was it
I used an air hose, or I breathed from an air hose, and I had safety people, 4 of them, that had other air hoses, and I would go into the scene, hold my breath, do as much as I could do, and then I'd get another air hose from the safety man. We had a signal that if I went totally limp, that meant I needed air. It worked out very well. They didn't drown.
Oh my goodness.
I got to ask, because I'm curious, but how complicated was it to go to the bathroom when you went down?
Same as any other time.
I mean, did it take a long time?
I know you go.
Any other questions?
How heavy was the suit?
When the suit was dry, it's sponge rubber and latex. It wasn't heavy. But I had to wear lead weights. I had a lead chest plate, thigh pads, and lead around my ankles so I could sink. And then when it got wet and with the lead, it got pretty heavy when you came out of the water.
Did
But
that ever become an
underwater,
issue?
you couldn't tell you have it on.
Was it ever difficult to get out of the water? Did that ever become an issue with the weight?
I'm sorry?
She said, was it ever difficult to get out of the water because of the weight?
No, I mean, it was just heavy. Just climbed out.
How long did it take to put on?
How long did the costume take to put on?
I'd say about 5 minutes to get in, about 5 minutes to get in. It's
Wow.
just a suit. You put your legs in, arms in, they zip up the back, put the head on, the hands on, and the feet. That's it.
Ricou, you had the story though about wasn't a suit glued to you at one point?
When they were building the suit,
That was fascinating.
I was in a leotard, and they were gluing pieces on, to make the rubber stick. And Jack Evan, who was the makeup artist, was putting a piece of the suit on my chest and gluing it. And after a few minutes, I said, Jack, this under this, it's getting hot. And he said, it'll cure in a few minutes, it'll be all right. And I said, Jack, it's getting hotter. And he said, well, I said, it's getting real hot. And I said, I'm going to tear this thing off. And I said, they took it off. And I had blisters on my chest from the glue setting up.
Wow.
It burned quite a bit.
And after that, they made a suit that was pre-made?
Yeah, they made a body cast. And then they put the leotard on the body cast and glued the pieces on.
Here's a gentleman back there, the hat. Yeah.
So, there's this one moment in the film where you are swimming upside down underwater. How much restraint was that, and how long did you have to practice undertaking stunts?
Swimming upside down underwater, how hard is that?
Did you ever swim upside down underwater? No, it's not difficult. It's just, you had to do it, you do it.
Gentleman to the right.
My question, or the question is, Creature has inspired so many films over the years. Has there been any filmmakers that you've met that have shared their stories or experiences that you can share with us that might be like certain films that have been inspired with the Creature of the Black Lagoon? Is there a certain one that stands out to you in any way, or just one you can mention with us?
Are there any filmmakers that came to you that told you how inspired they were by Creature and how it affected their films? Maybe the Charles or something.
I know with Mom, we've met a number of, I don't know their names per se, but special effects artists from Star Wars to The Abyss. We've been to their special effects studios, invitations, obviously almost every week or two. It seems like there's another article from someone who's been inspired by the creature, the suit. I think there's in one of the Star Wars behind the scenes, I think there's a direct lineage between the creation of some of the characters and the creature in Star Wars. So there's a huge, and The Abyss, of course, is an underwater film that some of them were inspired by. But it's touched a lot of people in many ways, filmmakers and all walks of life, really. I know we met a zoologist who saw Revenge of the Creature, which Ricou was in. He never knew there was a job where you could keep someone as basically a pet or in a cage until he saw Revenge of the Creature, and he became a zoologist because of that film. We've met paleontologists that became paleontologists because of the claw speech in the first one. So it really has an astonishing reach. That's what I can say for people we've met in the last few years and beyond, I'm sure, for further back.
Right. Gentleman right there.
Hi, Ricou. I was just wondering if you have any suits from the movies that you were allowed to keep them, or if you have repos made or something like that.
Did you ever keep any of the suits from any of the movies?
No. The suit probably rubber rotted 30 years ago. An unusual thing happened. I got a letter from a gentleman that ran an auction house, and they were selling a creature head, and he wanted to know if it was my head that I wore in the suit. And I said, I don't know. But Bob Burns in California knows more about the creature than I do. And he said that it was one of the heads that I wore. And they were going to auction it off and sell it. And the guy said, I'll pay you $500. Send me a letter saying it was your head. So I did. I got the $500. But they sold it at auction. It sold for $80,000. But it looked like it was melting.
Yeah.
And what the guy did with it, I have no idea.
Gentleman right there.
A lot of the questions I was going to ask were answered, but I wanted your, which film was your favorite? Like out of the other Universal monsters, Dracula, The Mummy, Wolfman, the Opera. Were y'all fans of any of those?
Favorite Universal monster?
I like
Besides
Wolfman. With Lon Chaney Jr.
Love it. Julie, were you a horror fan at all? Did you like any of the Universal monster movies?
I love Frankenstein because it scared me to pieces. Because I get down behind the seat and peek through the cracks, you know. that was a thrill for a kid, you know, so. They were scary, but I loved it anyway.
Richard?
I'm sorry, one more. There's a publicity picture of you, Miss Adams, where you were injured on the set. Your head had been hit against the wall or something?
Well, what happened was, see, why was I being carried on the set?
As the story goes, they forgot to heat the tank one morning. Near the end of the film, if anyone recalls, I think Ricou alluded to it, after he does the deep dive with Ginger, they come up in the cave, and then Julie's unconscious, and that you were so cold, and then Ben Chapman was actually carrying her in that scene.
That's right.
And his goggles fogged up, and there was paper mache.
That's right.
You remember that story?
Yes, right. So I was being carried, and I was supposed to be unconscious, so I'm limp in his arms. And Ben Chapman, of course, is a very big, strong fella, is fine, but he had his goggles on, you know, so he couldn't see very well. So, so he's carried me along, and all of a sudden, there were some things sticking out on the wall, and one hit me right here, and I jumped, you know. So they said, "Cut," you know. That's what it is. And then they came down and made a big thing about it, you know, did pictures and you know, all this stuff. Gee, it was just a bump on the head. But, so that's the way they are in movies. If there's a moment like that, they make a drama of it. So there we are.
Any more questions in the audience? Gentlemen?
Bernie, how long could you hold your breath?
How long could you hold your breath?
If you weren't doing anything, you know, just motionless, you could hold your breath for maybe 4 minutes. If you're swimming fast, or fighting, and using up a lot of oxygen, we cut it down to a couple of minutes, maybe a minute.
Anyone else? Right, friend?
Outside of the creature, what are each of your favorite, what film work are you most proud of?
Mine would be Thunderball. And one of the reasons we had an unlimited budget. I could spend all the money I wanted and take all the time I wanted to do the underwater scenes. And so that made it a lot of fun.
Oh, for me, I love doing Men of the River. Does anybody remember that? That was wonderful because we had a beautiful location, and we were doing the things I love to do. I mean, it was on that boat and on the river, and we had wonderful actors in the picture. And
Jimmy Stewart from the river.
James Stewart, you can't get better than that. And so it was a wonderful experience. So I think that's one of my very favorite films.
Julie, did they ask you to come back for the sequel, Revenge of the Creature? Was that ever a discussion?
I don't recall that it was.
I don't believe so, to my knowledge. I never heard tell. Like, I know it was Lori Nelson, as I recall, did that. Yeah, she was wonderful in that as well. So
I was just as glad, you know, that was enough. And it was okay. I was happy for Lori to step in.
Enrique, you did come back for the sequels. By the time they got to the second and third one, did they refine the suit at all? If there's still somebody's giving you that surprised you?
Well, I enjoy doing the conventions because we get to meet and hear from the people who have tuned into the shows. So we get a kind of feedback that way. And so I always have a very good time at the conventions. There we are.
Rico, how's the convention experience for you?
Great. As a matter of fact, this show, a guy gave me a watch, Creature from the Black Lagoon. And another gentleman came up just an hour ago and gave me a glass, had the creature on it and my name on the back of it. So I'm getting all kind of gifts.
Keep the gifts coming, people. Do we have any more questions in the audience? All the way back there?
Is there anything from the films that you've met here?
I have none. As the suits rubber rotted away and there are no other. Someone asked me about the spear gun. And, they want to buy one, and I don't know what happened to it. That was in the second movie, first movie.
Julie, did you give any prompts?
Well, I don't think they ever left things around for me to take home. They always went right back to the props. So, no, and I didn't, there wasn't anything I particularly hungered for that was there. So, I just had a good time.
Touch of paint on the suit. It's the only time I met her and only time I saw her. What she did as far as designing the suit, I have no idea.
I think in later years, though, she is credited as the creature designer, probably on the later film, but there's a lot of politics in terms of the wardrobe department, who designed some of these creatures, and so at least I think in time she got her due in terms of history's giving her credit on the film, but she was originally uncredited, but I believe she at least designed the mask and elements of the creature, but I think it was Jack Keevan, as you mentioned.
Jack Keevan had a lot to do.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, she was an animator, and I think she might have been the first female animator hired by Disney. I thought I heard that.
I believe they toured her around the country with the film as the woman behind the creature. She had a lot of publicity, and that created some jealousy, and I don't know the whole story, it was so long ago, but I'm glad that she's gotten credit, and there's a lot of credit to go around because it's an incredible suit.
And I think the second part was the difference between
Warner
the studios?
Yeah. How did you compare working at Universal versus Warner Brothers? Did you?
Well, I love to work, so I was happy working anywhere. But Universal was my home base, really. So I knew everybody there in wardrobe and the makeup and hair and so on. So, and I made friends. I knew many of the directors. I worked several times with certain people. And I knew most of the actors, people were under contract. So I was very at home at Universal. So I would say that was my favorite.
Yeah, one thing about Warner Brothers, when you think about a TV show, she probably worked on a TV show for maybe a day or two. Even if you were a lead guest on a TV show, you might get 2 days work. On this film, she was on it for perhaps 6 to 8 weeks. So there's a lot, I'd say more, you get a deeper relationship with them.
Absolutely. And then you got to know all the people in makeup and hair and wardrobe. And so it was my home base. And I loved it.
Okay. All right, well, let's wrap things up here. 60 years of the Creature from the Black Lagoon. You can meet these two in the room over here.
That's good.
Oh, dear.